Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today I want to try and answer a question I get asked all the time. How do we grow so many cucumbers? Let's get going. So this whole cucumber thing started many years ago when my wife and I were caring for my grandmother. Now, my grandmother had an incredible cold water fermented pickle recipe, and she taught it to my wife, and my wife really enjoyed making the pickles, but more than that, she enjoyed eating them. And then she got to the point where she kind of perfected the recipe, friends and family wanted them, and so the task fell on me to grow her enough cucumbers. So just to kind of set this off, last year Leslie pickled almost 70 jars of pickles. And this year we are well on our way to getting over 100. Not only that, but we also grow enough cucumbers to give away to friends and family and that sort of stuff, in addition to eating them daily with our breakfast and lunches. So what I did was I put together my top 5 tips to help everyone get the most out of their cucumbers. So let's start at the bottom. Literally. And let's talk about the soil that we grow our cucumbers in. Now, what we like to do is we mix organic compost with shredded leaves. The reason for this is our cucumbers like to grow in a loose, well-draining soil that is full of natural organic material. Now, the reason for this is when it rains, especially here in 7B, we get a lot of it all at once. If you have standing water around your cucumbers, it will rot your roots off, or it'll swell your cucumbers and pop them. The last thing you want is standing water around your cucumbers. Cucumbers also like a lot of water, so you need to design the soil to where it drains really well, but it has enough organic matter in it to absorb water to make sure the roots have the moisture they need without sitting in standing water. So speaking of water, you should have your cucumbers on their own watering regimen. As we stated, cucumbers, they don't like standing water and they like to have the soil they're grown in consistently moist. To maintain this, what we do is I water our cucumbers every other day when the temperatures are above 90. So here in 7B, that means that I'm watering cucumbers every other day from mid-May all the way through till September. It really does pay off though. Not only that, but you need to pay attention to how much water you put in there. If your soil is like ours and it drains really well, if you put too much water in there, you're just wasting it. It's just going to flow right through there. If you put too little, then your cucumber plants will not have the energy they need to produce the fruit and let it get nice and swollen the way you want to eat it. The third tip I have is to have a dedicated fertilizing regimen. Now, I mentioned that our soil is made up of organic material and compost. Now, that's going to help the vast majority of the year. But we want to have more than just good cucumbers. We want to have great cucumbers. So to do that, what we do is we use a fish emulsion that has a 5-1-1, which means it's pretty high in nitrogen compared to the rest of the nutrients in it. And what that does is it helps us with these beautiful leaves. And you can see under these leaves with them come so many flowers. Now what we do every 2 weeks, we come out and we will go through and fertilize our cucumbers with the fish emulsion. Now something to keep in mind when you're using the fish emulsion is it also helps with the watering. So if it works out to where the day that we're putting the fish emulsion out, coincides with the every other day watering, what I like to do is just water a little bit extra with our liquid fertilizer. So then you can do like the proverbial 2 birds with 1 stone thing. The fourth tip that I have for you folks is to make sure that you're trimming the leaves off of your cucumbers as they start to yellow and die back. Now on these large trellises behind me, naturally the cucumbers begin their life cycle by growing up the trellis. They put their fruit off, they'll get to the top. Now at that point, they're going to start looking for light. Usually by the time that happens, the bottom leaves on your plants have started to yellow, or they're mottled or beaten up from the weather, whatever the case happens to be. If you go through and remove a big majority of the leaves on the bottom side of your vines, that's naturally going to open up more light there. So what the cucumbers do is they'll start growing from the top back down again, so in search of the light. This is how we keep our cucumbers going from May all the way through September without running out of room or having to have a incredibly high trellis system. Again, the important part is to make sure that you do it during the natural cycle of the plant though, right? So begin growing up, the bottom parts will naturally start yellowing. You clear that material out, the plant itself will seek the light at the bottom, and then you just kind of rotate it. By the time the fruit comes off with the vines on the bottom, the top is ready to be trimmed. You take out all the damaged and yellow leaves up there. Again, it naturally creates an area of light. The vines will grow into that area, and you just continue doing this, throughout the course of the year. The one downside I'll say to this though is that when the year is over, and October rolls around and you start taking your trellises down, because you've woven those vines up and down those trellises so much, they are going to be loaded with the really hard, dried up cucumber vines. But all in all, I'd rather have a whole season of cucumbers and a little work in the wintertime as opposed to just giving up in July and taking the easy way out. So our fifth and final tip for you folks to get the most out of your cucumbers is going to be shade. Now this may sound a bit counterintuitive considering that whenever you look at the packet for cucumbers, it tells you to grow in full sun. Now here in zone 7B, growing in full sun can be brutal and it can actually burn up a whole lot of plants. In fact, those of you who watch the channel have probably seen some of our zucchini plants that just straight burned up when it was 115 degrees outside. But the reason I say shade for your cucumbers specifically is, while they do like light, they can be very susceptible to burning in the middle of the summer. So if we look at this one here, currently it is in full sun and the trellis next to it is in shade. The way we have timed this out is these two trellis systems, they will get a little over 8 hours. The important part is the reason we built these beds where we do is because after about 3:30, those massive oak trees up there block out almost all of the sun. It'll get some mottled sun, that sort of thing, but it blocks out most of it. And the evening sun is the harshest and most direct sun of the day. So because we're able to get the cucumbers 8 hours of sun, they have exactly what they need to make the best they can as far as their fruit is concerned. But we also utilize these massive, beautiful oak trees to give them the shade they need whenever it's the hottest part of the day. So I'm gonna leave you folks here with just one more thing. When we're talking about shade, if you don't have access to these big, beautiful oak trees like we're fortunate enough to have here, or you don't have natural shade in the evenings, all you need to do is take some large T-posts, put them at the end of your cucumber row, make sure it's oriented correctly. And you may have to switch it a little bit as the year goes along. After the summer solstice, the sun starts moving a little bit. So you might need to move those T-posts periodically, but all you have to do is put up shade cloth. If you get 6-7 feet of shade cloth at the end of your row, it's gonna project a big enough shade to make sure the hottest and most direct part of the sun stays off your cucumbers. And you will be very surprised by the longevity and production you get from your plants when you do this. Well, as always, I appreciate everyone for hanging out with me today. Till next time, I hope all you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.